And welcome everybody. It's lovely to be able to speak to you all, not just as a moderator, but actually to be able to come and do a session. So really delighted to be here. And as one of the organisers of the event, really hope that you're having a good day. Metaverse One is one of my favourite events of the year because it's such a diverse topic. So we get to talk about all things from, the stuff in the headsets all the way through to the Power Platform, which is obviously my passion. So really delighted to be here with you today to talk about AI in the Power Platform. So if you haven't met me, this is me. Please do say hello on social or any of these methods that we've got on here to be able to touch base with me. I'm a Microsoft Business Applications MVP, and I'm also a regional director now, newly minted this year. So really looking forward to that more commercial role. I'm also the CEO of a Microsoft partner. So I live and breathe Microsoft products all day, every day. My favourite being those in the Power Platform. That said, I do love SharePoint. I need to put that out there because not a lot of people do love SharePoint. So I think it's important that we declare it up front. Yes, I do love SharePoint. And I do always say yes to a coffee at ridiculous times of day, which usually isn't a good idea, but really, really social. So happy to join anybody for a virtual coffee at any time. Do just give me a shout on social and we'll chat through the Power Platform or anything you've got going on with Microsoft 365. I'm also the community leader of the Cambridge Power Platform user group, which is probably where you'll see me most often, adding in some sessions. And we've got a session coming up later. I think it's in early October. So that'll be our autumn session. So I'm always pretty much around. And if I haven't met you before, lovely to meet you for the first time. Like I say, touch base, get in touch, and let's chat about the Power Platform. So what am I going to talk to you about today? So this is really an overview session. So there's quite a few videos out there. There's quite a few previews. But to me, it's not quite the same unless, firstly, we talk about it from a commercial point of view, AI for business. And then secondly, we get our hands on it. Now, because it's new technology and, likely to sometimes be a little bit slow and clunky, I've actually recorded some bits to show you. So as we go through the sessions, I'll show you what you can and can't do at the moment in the preview of the AI co-pilots within the Power Apps, Power Automate, Power Virtual Agents, and Power Pages. And then we'll have a little bit of Q&A at the end. So AI for business, and this can be any size business. I'm talking about small businesses all the way through to the largest of enterprises. We generally have the same challenges and opportunities available to us. So for me, the biggest one at the moment is this skill shortage in IT. So we have an estimated 4 million shortage of developers worldwide. And the reason why that's relevant is the bottom point here is that the lack of talent is a barrier to emerging technologies. So it's actually, really stopping our innovation that we don't have access to a pool of developers worldwide. Now, to be clear, I'm not saying that we exchange the need for developers with AI. What I'm saying is it's a tool to help them be more productive, and it's about time. We've had productivity tools for most other areas of the business over time, and poor old IT gets left behind. So I'm pleased to say that some of the stuff we're going to look at today is really to help those developers be a little bit more effective and productive. So some of the stuff that we all have challenges about in the business world, and I make no apology for talking about business all the time. This is why I'm a regional director. It's because getting to value in a business sense is kind of what I'm all around. And it's important to understand that all businesses have the key challenges are the same. So that being competitiveness, efficiency and productivity, and knowledge and insight. So competitiveness is always an issue. We've always got other people in our market. There's usually always room in the market for other competitors, and we like to have competitors in the marketplace. But it is an issue for all business owners of how do we stay competitive. Efficiency and productivity is always going to be an issue, as is knowledge and insight, which means looking internally at ourselves and being able to leverage what we've got as a business to actually provide more to customers or in services or in user interfaces. The opportunities that AI presents then, specifically against those challenges, is the ability to empower teams with skills quickly. Now, again, I'm not saying that we're replacing people. It's really important that I emphasize that. The importance of AI is to really augment skills, not to replace them. So we can empower our teams with the tools that AI is going to bring us. We can, as a business, get ahead and stay ahead. Now, that's important to note that that's only if we start leveraging it right at the beginning. If we leave it too late to embrace AI, then we're going to be behind. We don't want to be in that situation. So we need to get ahead and stay ahead. The way we do that is to look at the tools as they're launched and to ultimately establish the value of those tools for us as a business. We want to produce more with less, and by this I'm specifically looking at efficiency and productivity as a business challenge. So we need to be able to understand how we can produce more with less time, less skills in the team, less ability to disturb some of the busier members of the team, etc. That's what I mean there by produce more with less. And also access knowledge that you'd usually pay for. So where you suddenly have these barriers to knowledge that you would go out. So if you need to do some research around contracts, contract wording, anything along those lines, AI can really help you get up to speed quickly. Obviously, it's a little bit behind in terms of the timeline of the data, but you can get a picture as a business as to what information you need to then go and find. So it's that barrier to information gone. So then let's talk about the benefits and the risks. So the benefits of AI within a business setting is that we can supplement the large language models without context relevant data. So I'm making a massive assumption here that we've all played with ChatGPT or Claude, and that we understand what a large language model is. But basically, quick overview, the large language model is the model that you're presented with these tools that are already out there that are, sorry, I'm just going to turn off my phone because it's bleeping, that are already available to us to leverage through the tools that exist. Now, if we take that massive set of data that already exists and has already been trawled and vectored and scaled for us, and we add in our business's data, the context that's relevant to us, if we're, a legal organization, or if we are in manufacturing, or if we're in service provision, the data that we've collated over the years as a business on top of those large language models is a massive benefit for all businesses. And that's the direction that we're going in. When we work faster and better, we do innovate more. And I don't know if any of you have seen this already. If you've been off and you've chatted with Claude or ChatGPT for any period of time, you very much start at a point of, what can I ask? And the moment that you've asked something and you've gone down a track, suddenly you're like, well, hang on a minute, if I can do that, that means I can do this. That innovation just naturally happens when we get answers to questions. And that's really what AI is giving us, is that ability. Normally we would search for something, we would then find it, we would validate it, and then we would apply it. We're shortening that. By doing that, it gives us a lot more access to innovation in our own minds, in our businesses, with our teams. All teams, therefore, become more productive. Massive benefit. And for those teams that aren't quite sure how to use it yet, or aren't quite sure what to ask, or haven't got into prompt engineering and all of those lovely things, well, there's a journey to go down. But once you understand the power of AI relevant to your area of a business, all teams become more productive. My belief, personal opinion. And then we can leverage our own data. So that data, and the point here is it's going back to the context relevant data, but the point here is that we spend a lot of time as SharePoint and Office 365 experts taking unstructured data into structured data to make it usable. AI does not care whether it's structured or not. It can still, assuming that all the permissions are correct, so let's put that caveat out there, it can still index, use, and make available that context relevant knowledge in structured or unstructured data. That's the glory of these models. One of the risks, we hear a lot about the risks, don't we? But they're real and they are there. So, I mean, I love these two quotes. So AI will probably lead to the end of the world, but in the meantime, there'll be great companies. Strongly believe that. There's a lot to be done. There's a lot of exciting times ahead of us. And I think looking at the risks there, again, let me reiterate that it doesn't replace learning or skills, but it augments them. There is no insight that you're going to get in this data that doesn't need validating with a skill. I personally can't program in C#, and if I asked a question of any of the AIs of how do I do this in C#, I would not know what I was looking at. I kind of would, but I would not know whether it was right or wrong unless I've got some AI skill, unless I've got some C# skill that I can then decide, does that apply to me? Has it just made this up? Is that wishful thinking? If I ask it a SharePoint question, I do know that it can do some wishful thinking. So you can't just rely on AI. You need to augment your skills. So it's about being able to get to those answers faster, not replacing skills or writing code for you from scratch. And absolutely, that's not where the platform is going or how we should look at it. I know Sancho agrees with me because I've seen him do an entire presentation on that particular topic. Exposure of confidential data and security and data loss prevention. Now, these are genuine risks, right? So already we've got tools out there like ChatGPT, and we're having to, I've had ChatGPT write a policy for my organization to tell people how not to use it. What you have to be concerned about is putting your private and confidential data into public models. Now, the good news is that Microsoft is all over this, and it is that security and confidentiality and access to data that Microsoft have already solved for us with M365. And so putting an AI platform within M365 is really going to solve that problem for us. So while other tools have still got this mountain to climb, Microsoft has already got the secure environment with all of that lovely security and compliance stuff in place for us. And the last point, that it levels the playing field, again, we really have to think about this as a risk. So like I was saying before, you need to work with the tools now rather than putting it off till later. But looking at this quote here from The Guardian, that AI without governance may undermine customer trust or consumer trust, the reason why I've put that in there is specifically for that point. So everybody has the tools to be able to create a credible website that sounds credible and looks credible, but isn't necessarily credible. So that doesn't matter whether you are a genuine organization or an absolute wannabe organization, growing organization, or a complete fraudster. Okay, it's worth considering that consumer trust can easily be eroded if people are looking at the same quality of information from every provider out there. Something to bear in mind for those business users out there. So what is the most powerful programming language? I'm not going to ask you for answers in the chat. You can put them there if you like. But it is natural language. Absolutely is. Just describe what you want and let the platform do the rest. And that's the essence of the Microsoft AI platform that's being developed. So I'm not specifically going to talk about M365 Copilot, but I think it's a really nice example of where we're at and where it's all going. We can see that the Copilot is looking at plugins. It's looking at extensions and connectors. This is because what they're doing is they're creating, as they usually do, and as they're very, very successful at doing, they're creating a foundational platform, a level across the platform for that AI. And what that does is makes it super powerful, because then all of the tools can access this, much like they did with the Graph API, much like they've done with security and compliance layers that they put in the platform for us to be able to leverage across all of the tool set. So that means that we can then access and leverage those large language models, and it also integrates into all Azure, M365, and Microsoft 365 Copilot. Once it's inside like the Office products, is going to be super powerful. We're already showing in preview the Power Platform stuff, but then to go into the rest of the product set as well, so that wherever you go, you've always got a Copilot with you. It's just going to be ridiculously powerful. So what do we have right now? So the AI platform that we have, we can build with co-pilots. So we've got co-pilots that are going to sit there with us as our pair programming or our assistant or our sounding board. And we can leverage knowledge. So then we've got the chat GPT style plugins where we can ask questions, understand information. But where are we going? Well, the best is massively still to come, because having developed a platform, it's then what goes on top of that. And it's not necessarily Microsoft's job to create those tools. It's very definitely our job as third parties, as businesses, as developers, to go away and use those tools within the Power Platform, within all of the Azure and to be able to take that AI platform and escalate it. And that's what Microsoft's allowing us to do, which is great news for businesses because the platform is wide open. And it means that Microsoft focus on the platform layer, which is their speciality, not trying to do a million different programs, which, let's face it, we all want to do things slightly our own way anyway. So then, I think I've missed a slide there. So let's move straight into Power Apps. So Power Apps for me, and I'm going to spend the longest on Power Apps because I think it's the most important co-pilot that we've got. But Power Apps for me has already been on this journey for a little while. If you look at the timeline, in May 2021, the ideas, this is Chat GPT 3 based, this ideas engine that was already put in. So we have natural language here to create formulas, and we've got GPT-3 as an engine underneath all of that. A year later, in May 2022, we then got to the you can draw a pretty picture and we'll turn it into an app for you functionality. So the express design element also leveraging the same platform. So it's releasing more functionality into the app. And then March 2023, we announced co-pilots and the fact that the co-pilot is going to be available during the app creation process, but also you can add a co-pilot into your app. So you can now have a screen that's got the co-pilot on it so that people can ask questions about your app and your data. So it gets super powerful. So we've got a bit of a double whammy this year, I think. So thinking then about how that co-pilot works in Power Apps, I've got, like I say, a video demo here. I can jump to the environment if anybody wants to see anything specific, please do ask. But we're going to have a look at what I think are the key features within this co-pilot. So we can create apps. We're creating responsive Canvas apps at the moment. We're not creating model-driven just yet. Remember, I'm showing you the preview product, not the release candidate. We can use it in apps. And like I say, we can also add it to apps. So I'll show you some of the stuff that I managed to do while playing. We do have some limitations. Now, whether this is with the preview or whether this is going to be at launch, it's not quite public yet. In that, as we're describing and I'll show you the process, but as we're describing the app that we want to build, we're literally creating one table for it. So, and I'll explain that as I go through. The context, however, is limited. So again, I'll show you that as we go through. It's also in the preview only available in the US environments, and Dataverse is the only storage that we have. So we're creating a Dataverse table as we create an app, if we're creating that app with the co-pilot. So two methods there. We can have the co-pilot right at the beginning to help us generate the app, or we can just use the co-pilot in-app. So let me show you some of the stuff that I got up to. I was hoping that was going to be full screen, but clearly not when you're on this embedded. Okay, so I apologize if this is going to be difficult to read. If it is, I'll switch to the other method. So what I asked for, and that literally is too small to see. I'm going to switch. Sorry, Sancho. Let me jump in here. My apologies, I did not test the video experience from within Teams. Let's just switch over. Instead, I will share this screen. Okay, hopefully you can see that again.
Yeah.
Cool. So now when I click this, it should go big screen. There we go. So what we're going to do, so in here we have this lovely box at the top in our environment. We can see I'm in the Copilot demo environment. So I'm going to ask it to create a contract management app. It's a really simple request, and the more simple, the better, because once we get inside this next stage, we can start refining exactly what it is that we're asking for. So immediately what it's done is it's created a table for me, and it's thinking, this is the kind of stuff with contract management. Are we right or are we not? So we need to refine this a little bit more for what I'm looking for. So let's ask it to do some tasks. So I'm going to come down to the bottom right hand corner here where it says describe what you want changed. I'm going to say, change my mind. Add a signed date. So what I want to know is what date was the contract signed? Now, I did this in real time for the later videos that I'm going to show you. I think Power Pages was the slowest. This takes a little minute for the working on it to work. So what that did is it added a signed date for me on the right-hand side, which I'll scroll over and show you. And I'm now asking it to remove the cost column because I don't want a cost associated with mine. So there's the signed date, and we can see that cost has disappeared. Great. Okay, so now that I have got a signed date, what I want to do is change that to just be an actual date. I don't want this 12 a.m. nonsense. I'm not particularly interested in the time. And the other thing that I then want to do, as we tend to always do when we're managing contracts, is have an expiry date. So I'm going to give it a specific request for my expiry date, and we'll see how it gets on with that. So we're currently just changing that date type. So there it is, that's changed now. We've lost the time. And I'm going to ask it to create my expiry. So I'm asking for an expiry date as a calculated column. And I want it 1 year on from the signed date. So what I'm saying is 1 year after it was signed, I'm going to need to renew that contract. Just having a quick think about it. There we go. If I scroll over to the right, you'll see we now have an expiry date. So you can see 2020, 21, 2010, 2011. It's a different format, but let's not get too picky about that just now. We can always change that later. So then thinking about what else we've got in the data, I don't currently have an owner for that data. So I need to add an internal owner. So it's an internal user as a M365 user. So we're going to ask it to do that. So as you can see, what the normal process would be when we're developing an app is we would have spent this time developing the data structure inside of Dataverse, and then coming in here and effectively attaching that data to an app. What we're doing at the moment is we're thinking through both at the same time. So there we are. We have an internal owner. And then any last changes that we want to make, we are going to look at adding in a customer name. And I think we probably got a name of the contract. Oop, I'm not quite sure why that jumped to for a moment. I apologise. I think I knocked my desk. Get you back there. Okay, so then I asked for a more complex column, which is an option set. So I'm saying add a contract type with options, SLA, NDA, and standard contract. So what I'm expecting it to do in this sample data that it's showing me is to be able to have a few of them set to different things. Let's see how it handles that as a request. Yep, there we go. Different types, and we can see that that is a choice field. So that's great. I don't necessarily want an end date because I've got my sign date and my expiry, so I'm just going to remove the end date. So I've done some standard things there. I've removed columns, I've added columns, I've requested certain types of columns, and I've really augmented the data to be what I want it to be inside the application itself. So that now tells me it's been updated and end date has in fact disappeared. So I was sitting here thinking, well, how else can I play with this without understanding more about the data? So I said, add some more sample data just to innovate and to have me thinking about what it is that we've got in front of us and how that might apply to different data sets. So adding more sample data, I think it's literally going to double it. And we can see down the bottom left-hand corner, we have suggestions of what it is we might ask the AI to be able to do. I think I've touched on most of those. So our sample data is now 10 items rather than just 5. And I think we're happy with that. So I've hit the Create App button. Now, this bit reminds me of when we used to be able to just say, connect to a data source or connect to an Excel spreadsheet and create an app from it. This is very similar to that in a process, in that I get very excited that it's doing something that I didn't have to do. Oh dear. Happens. That's why I left it in. If you just refresh, then it tends to finish that. So that wizard just had a little moment at the end where it couldn't quite deliver the page. So again, I had that a couple of times, so I thought I would leave that in and show you that you just do need to hit refresh to get that to work. Once we're in the environment, we can see that I have an app, happy days. I've got a gallery, I've got a form here, probably some of it I'd want to change, reduce times and dates, change formats, etc. And I've got my Copilot also inside here with me. So I can then start asking for new things. I can say, add me a new screen. There it is. Once I've got that new screen, I could then ask it to add anything I want to that screen. So I'm going to ask it to add a gallery. And it's added me a gallery. Now, some of these actions we get to a point, and this is more prevalent, I think, in Power Automate when I show you the demo there, that it would take me longer to type it in this box and have the system do it than it would to actually do it myself. But I'm playing, so I wanted to be able to make some changes. So what did I say? Change the gallery to show the contract name and the owner. And it said I couldn't find gallery 1. Can you say that again? But this time tell me the exact name of the item you want to change. So off we go to have a look at what its item name is. And I can see down the bottom left here, it's called gallery 1. So maybe we'll give it a little bit of a clue. And I might spell some of that correctly in a moment. And this is just me showing you that you can probably spend longer sometimes typing what you want the system to do than you can by doing it yourself. So these are potentially some of the things that you wouldn't necessarily get the Copilot to do for you. And you can see it's still struggling with it. But if I just click on here, I can do all of this connectivity myself. It's all very nice in the application itself. Anyway, we can see at the top, I had this item, for example, on that. I would literally just need to be able to make those changes manually. And then I thought I would ask if it can delete screen 1 for me. Because it's always good to know what it can do and what it won't do. And no, that was the answer. So that's fair enough. Maybe it's one of those things that, like I say, you can come over here and just hit delete quite quickly. You don't really need AI to be able to do everything for you. But maybe deleting is too much power and they want you to be able to do those actions yourself. Otherwise, there would potentially need to be a prompt there. Or maybe it was just having a bad day and just didn't want to delete that one for me. So I looked at the suggestions that it had down the bottom right for me. So we can see down there that it's saying add a text label, add a gallery, add a button. And so I clicked on the add an email screen. Let's see what it creates here, because I don't know what we mean by add an email screen. So we'll see exactly what it's going to create for me. That's clearly one of the things that people often add to an app. Not sure why, but maybe it's to report an issue or a bug. I then also clicked one of the suggestions there of add a button, which beautifully hid in the top bar here. So I'll just go and drag that down so that we can see that. So it's definitely, if you've got a bit of speed about you, add a button, etc. One thing that I would say about this is you do get the nice thumbs up, thumbs down on the Copilot on the right hand side here. But for anybody that's got used to using Claude or ChatGPT, the ability to copy and reuse, or to be able to reapply a step, for me, I think is really important, and I'm hoping that comes either when we come out of preview or really quickly to these products. So that's where it falls in Power Apps, and the reason to spend the most time there is because the others are actually quite similar, as you would expect them to be. Like I say, we're leveraging a platform here. But the interesting thing is that everything is context relevant. So I wasn't asking questions about Power Automate and within the Power Apps Copilot. And if I did, it would probably tell me to jump to Power Automate. So let's have a look at Power Automate. So again, we've got this familiar look at the top here where the Copilot lives. So I am using a developer environment, hence the warning. And it's got some ideas of things that you could do here, which are akin to those, starter templates, etc., that we've always had in Power Automate. So for me, the key features inside here are, this is a if this then that style prompt that's going to work best for you. So when an email arrives, notify somebody. So it's best that you coach it in those terms so that it can easily understand action, reaction in terms of flow, because that's the modality that it has. It's the context that the Copilot has. And also, if you know the connector, so if you're looking for a connector for Dataverse, say Dataverse. If you're looking for a connector for Salesforce, say Salesforce. Give it a clue what it is you're looking for. Otherwise, you might be here for a little while. The most powerful Copilot request in here, and I didn't add it into the demo because I don't have some nice long complicated flows that I can show you without confidentiality clauses. But what does this flow do, I think, is going to be the killer feature of Copilot within Power Automate. So you know how it is when you're in a support instance or you're looking at a flow for somebody else and trying to help them troubleshoot it, to be able to say, what does this part do? And it will explain it to you like you're a 5-year-old, or explain it to you at least in plain English. That's going to be the killer feature for me of the Power Automate Copilot. But let's have a look at the bits that I did get it to do. So for me, it's not going to be about creating, a fictitious list. I want it to actually do something useful. So I'm saying, when a new contract, a contract record is created in Dataverse, start an approval workflow by first asking the owner of the approver for the approver as a card in Teams. It's a complex request. And what it did is it suggested to me one way of doing it, but I'm like, that's not really what I'm looking for. I really wanted this post a message in a chat or a channel. And so it actually gave me 2 suggestions. This, I think, is really nice. So I'm going to pick the one that I want to go for. And it's asking me for connectors. And then quite nicely, because we're in the developer environment and because it's a US tenant, we're actually seeing this new design surface, which is quite good fun, actually, if you haven't had a play with it before. But as you can see, and this I really like where it comes up in the big panel on the left, you can see that I have invalid parameters, but I've got my base model there. All of my connectors are on the screen. What I need to do is to configure them. So then I thought, okay, well, let's see how useful this is. So I'm saying use the contracts table for when a row is added action. So I'm thinking over here in the table name. So actually I jumped into Dataverse and I thought, well, I'll get the actual real name. Let's give it a hand. Why not? So if we nip back again, and I'm not quite as cryptic, and I give it the real table name, can it do this? Can it add that over here where I would normally do the drop down and pick the type in the table? So I gave it a minute. It changed my flow completely, which I was not expecting. So now I've got a condition and I've lost some of my information at the bottom. Now what it's trying to do is intuit what I'm up to, what I'm trying to do. So as you can see on the right hand side here, it updated a trigger, it added some actions, and I'm like, yeah, no, that's not what I intended. So I have an undo button, which again, I think is really useful. So I'm going to click that undo, nip back a step and think about how I might ask that question a little bit better. So let's revert that. So as I was saying, I could scroll up and I can see the exact thing that I asked, but I can't ask it again. I can't reapply it. So I'm going to type it out again. So I'm now saying use the contract management table for the for the trigger, thinking there's only one trigger in a flow. It's got to be the first one. Surely it can work that out. We give it a minute. Not so much. Now again, is this the language that I'm using? Is this a limitation of the Copilot? Not sure. I'm giving it one last chance. So I'm going to try and reword it because I'm learning too. I need to know what the AI can do. And we all know that by now I could have done it manually, right? So, and that's kind of my point. There we go. So I'm saying, badly typing, but use the contract management table for the Dataverse when a row is added, modified, or deleted action to see if it can actually work that out if I give it specifically the name of the connector. It's working on it. Which is the SharePoint term, I like that. Okay, so again, it put a condition in for me, which is fair, right? Maybe this is what I want to do. Or maybe I just want to remove that condition. So it's not necessarily something that I'd thought through having in my solution, but happy days, it did put contract management in as my table. So it not only did it do what I asked it to do, but it then thought about what I might need to do with that once I'd got that data. So I then said, okay, remove the condition. And consistently with the Power Apps Copilot, it kind of did it, but it actually didn't. So all it did was to remove the wrapper. So I'm just gonna, I just went in and deleted a few bits. So that was really the I didn't realize this was going to skip, sorry. So that was the Power Automate demo. So I found that the Power Automate was great at getting started, great at being able to tell me what was in somebody else's flow and explain it to me, but actually quite hard work once I was in a flow, maybe because I know what I'm doing, I don't know. So definitely worth a play, that one. So Power Virtual Agents then, I'm not sure about that heading. So the key features then of the Power Virtual Agents are the generative answers from a website. Really, really like this as a feature, and auto creating topics. I'm just going to jump straight in and show you what I mean. So unlike the others, we don't have the Copilot at the top here. You have to create a Power Virtual Agent, and then you'll see this generative answers from a website element on the bot itself. Now, I think this is ridiculously powerful. So I was asked the other day for, can we have a licensing bot? Wouldn't that be nice? So we can ask it, how do I license Power Platform in a certain instance, for example? I'm not sure that could necessarily be done from the content of a website, but Microsoft Learn, I spend a lot of time on Microsoft Learn, as do my team. So the ability to have Microsoft Learn as a source of information that I can then create generative content about really appeals. So what I've got here, I'm just clicking a few buttons to show you that all the standard stuff is there. We've got the overview, we've got topics. It's exactly the same as we would normally have, except we have this ability to create the information from a site. If I go into settings, for example, down in AI capabilities, you can see that I've added the learn.microsoft site, and I could add many more. And that's really exciting. So then I can start asking questions specifically about the MS Learn content. So what Microsoft exams are there for Power Platform? I'm not quite sure how it's going to answer that. Let's give it a chance. It's having a think. And again, I'm using the test bot here. This is not a deployed bot. Okay, so that was too generic. So let's have a think about what's on Microsoft Learn. And this part here is really interesting to me. We've got code samples, we've got all kinds of information about exams, etc. So I thought, well, let's have a think about how people are using Microsoft Learn. So what is the most popular subject on Microsoft Learn? Just to prove that we are actually accessing the Learn content. Taking a minute. Again, I left all of this in real time for you. Okay. So here we are with the result. Most popular subject on Microsoft Learn is the ability to learn products and services through task-based activities. So, and again, we can then ask it what learning paths we should be looking at for, let's have a look, PL 900. Oh, sorry, I swear that is when I knock my desk. I will stop doing that. Let's get back here. And here we are, a link to the learning path telling us what it might cover, the resources, etc. So this is the kind of thing I'm looking for if I were to deploy that bot into Microsoft Teams and make it available for the whole organization to be able to understand what topics they should go and learn. Now, I was talking over it while I did that, but one of the other things that you can do is you can start a topic with Copilot. So rather than trying to work out all of the different prompts, etc., we can tell Copilot what it is we're trying to do as a topic. Now, for those of you that haven't worked with Power Virtual Agents before, topic is it's a topic, right? So if I want to talk about ordering or I want to talk about complaining, each of those would be separate topics, and I would have handlers for if somebody says, how do I order? Then it would go into the ordering stream and it would be able to ask certain questions. So what we've got here is the ability to tell the Copilot, this is the topic that I'm looking for. And what it will do is it will create the phrases that it's going to trigger in this topic, and it will create the information that you're going to need to know to be able to answer the question fully to the end user. So for this one, it's saying what tests are required for a job role, what exams do I need to take for a job role. It's really quite vague, but it did at least create it for me. And I still have my Copilot here on the right-hand side where I could be further refining what I've asked it to do here with that Copilot. But going with what it's created, I could very quickly show you in the test bot itself by asking one of those questions, what tests are required, or what test should I take? And it's going to take us through the process. You'll see it should, I'm not sure it will answer that one correctly. Oh, there we go. So to become a Power Platform developer, it's recommended PL 400, but I wanted it to walk through this specific topic. So let's try something a bit more specific on the phrases that it said. Are there any exams associated? So I'm going to say, are there any exams for my job role? Sorry. Did it again. Like that, right to the end. And that was right at the end. So what it did was it jumped. When I asked that question, it's going to jump to this question. It's going to highlight in the topic, see this question there. So that was highlighted to be able to show you that it was following the process. So if I'd have better defined it, that would have been a really nice auto setup of a topic based on documentation. Bear in mind that I just created a chatbot for something that I actually know nothing about. I didn't have to think what the topics were. I didn't have to curate the content. I just pointed it at our website. That, I think, certainly for internal users, ridiculously powerful, and that's going to be really well leveraged, I think. So let's move on to the last one, Power Pages. and I really am going to have to wrap this up quite quickly. So for me, I think this is a short demo, so let me just get started in here for you. Some key things to point out. We don't have it at the top again, so the Copilot is actually within the Power Pages experience itself, so you do need to create an active site. So I've created a demo site here for my Copilot demo, so I'm going to edit that, and at that point the Copilot then is here on the right hand side for me in the usual spot. I can turn it on or off using the Copilot icon. So what I've done here is I've just created a basic site from a demo, and I'm going to ask it to do some really standard stuff in Power Pages. So create a new page. This was nice, actually, talking about our products and services as a Microsoft partner. And I believe I was pausing it between actions because this one was actually quite slow, so it should pop up quite quickly. And to my mind, as a Copilot, this did a great job because it really did give me a head start. Took a little longer than I thought it did. Here you go. So we've got several sections: Microsoft Partner Services, technical support, marketing resources. It's had to think about what kinds of things I might put on that page. And so we can do some standard stuff in here. And this was an interesting request, actually. So I know that it can add a section. So I said, add a call to action section for registering for an event. Register in our new service training bootcamp, I think it is, that I put in here. So what I wanted it to do is create me a banner, create me a button. But what I then said is, and create me a form for registering. And the reason why I'm showing you that specifically is it struggled with the and in that sentence. So beautifully, it created me a register for our new service training bootcamp, gave me a button, but not the form. But what it did do is it's then created a suggestion for me of create an event registration form. So I'm going to click that. So it kind of got what I was looking for. And for me in Power Pages, this bit just here is the big win, because I think this is about 4 times, if not more, faster than going to, dipping out to Dataverse and creating that form yourself. Okay, can I jump back to where that was? Here we go. So what it's doing is, and I think I've gone a little bit too far. Let's get it back a little bit. Here we go. So what it did is it created an event registration form with some standard fields, which is probably exactly what I'm looking for. So I'm just going to add it straight to the page. Like I say, this one was really a bit clunky and slow for me. So you do see a few of these loading screens. So, but it's adding that form directly to the page for me. So I didn't have to jump out to Dataverse. I didn't have to think about what all of the fields that I needed, didn't have to create them and then come back here and add it in as a data source and then create the form and amend the form. It's doing it all for me. So you can see here, I have a form. It's not the most beautiful thing in the world, but we can worry about that later and I can probably get it to do it. But standard things, I can edit fields right from here and permissions, and I can remove it if I want to. So a lot of legwork done right there on a form. So I then started asking it to get a little bit more creative in terms of the design and the, to me, this image of a couple holding a walking stick doesn't say high-tech organization that's working with Microsoft. So I asked it to change the top image into something more modern. And again, I'm too vague. It really struggled with this as a request and gave me a theme suggestion. Thought, well, okay, let's apply a theme. So that got kind of red. Don't like that theme, so I'm going to hit the try again button. And what it's doing is it's generating a new theme. So don't like that one either. It's too similar. Let's go again. So now it's thinking about some of the things I've said, and it's giving me yet another theme choice. So I can apply that theme. Oh, this one doesn't work because all of the top text has now gone. So I'm going to say, try that again. And I'm probably just going to nip up again. That's another mainly black theme. So I'm just going to set it back to the red. Didn't really like it, but I can deal with that later. And now I'm going to try replacing the existing image with a new one again and see how I get on. And it doesn't really do what I want it to do. If you notice on this section, we've got some lovely text. It really did learn all about what I was asking for. And now it changed everything. So actually, what it did was it regenerated the page rather than creating me that text. So I think this is just a bit too vague for it. And you do need to be really specific about what you want it to do for those type of requests. So it then goes through a loop where it will change some of those page parts for me. I'm going to skip forward because we are running out of time.
Yeah, we're up on time, Sharon.
Sorry. This bit I just wanted to show you. So the nice bit about the text in Power Pages is they've built in the make it shorter, make it longer, and the change tone, which I think is a really nice feature. So let's apologies. Let's get to the end of that. It's the easiest way to progress it. So changing the length, the tone, and a one-click rewrite, really nice. Spark, so down in here, this little bit here called a spark, that shows you what it can and can't do easily. And you know, the ability that you can, and I didn't get a chance to show you that on there, you can also add a chatbot into your Power Pages. And if you decide that you want to use pro code tools like VS Code for your Power Pages, you got a Copilot in there too. So that's really nice. So finishing off then, so I know I need to do. Coming back to this side, so like I said, you can probably see there from looking at the tools themselves, there's a consistency. They are really context specific to the app that you're in. You do need to tell it explicitly what it is that you're trying to do, and that will get better as it learns more and as they come out of preview. Let's not forget they are preview products, but it's interesting to see how they're going to surface and what they're going to do. And I think it's a nice clue as to what the Microsoft 365 full Copilot is going to look like too. So any questions? And this is the most common question, how do I get started? And I would heartily recommend that you go and have a look at the amazing April Dunham's YouTube channel, where she's got a lovely little Copilot dev environment set up. So she tells you how to get the developer environment, how to get the licenses, how to set it up for a US environment so that you've got the Copilots available to you and you can have a play yourself. Do we have any questions, Sanjay?
Okay, nothing in the chat. I think it was important that you raised about validating anything, because as it says in every response with Copilot, AI generated content may be incorrect. So that's already Microsoft telling you to validate that yourself, because it's not going to be perfect.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, the point of, like I say, when you go looking for something, you're like, what am I looking for? You'll refine your search a bit, you'll find some answers. You spend the time on Stack Overflow, whatever it is you've ended up with, validating that the answer is relevant to the problem that you're having, and then you're going to go and apply that in a way and find some instructions for it, search a little bit more. What it's doing is it's condensing that for you. It's not always going to be right, because there's a lot of bad information out there, and it's important to remember that AI is only as good as the information that's out there. It's not thinking for itself in any way, shape or form.
No, exactly.